Hey guys, Typical Dave here. I'm playing the Human Resource Machine. This is year 38, and I'll be showing you how to get both the size and the speed challenges completed. In this one, the requirements are use 30 or fewer commands, or use 165 or fewer steps. In this level, it is not possible to get both in one go, so I'll be showing you how to get the size challenge and then complete the speed challenge. What we have to do is take a number from the inbox. We've got to split it up into each individual number, and we're going to outbox it. So 704, we're going to output a 7, output a 0, then output a 4. If it's a 7, we're just only going to output a 7. First, we need to mark up some cells because it's going to make things easier. So this 0 will always be a 0. The 10 will always be a 10 in this box, and this 100 will stay as 100. In this cell here is where we're going to keep track of how many ones, or first column, so in this case it would be a 4. In this column we're going to keep track of all the 10s, so if it was 704 there will be no 10s. In this one we're going to keep track of how many hundreds there are, so if in this scenario it will be a 7, so 704. Once we have that, we're going to output it. Right, now we've got all this marked out, we're good to go. So we're going to copy the 0 and we're going to write it down in both the 10s column and the 100s column, so that we've got something to count up from. We're then going to go to the inbox and we're going to write it down in the 1s column. So it should be a 704 here. So what we need to do is take the 7 off and move it over, and take the 0 off and move it over, and leave just the 1s left over. The way we're going to do this is we are going to subtract 100 from this number. So we've just written down the 704, so we should still be holding in our hands, minus 100, we'll leave 604. So we are going to write down the 604 in this cell, and then we are going to bump up to say that we found 100. And once we've done that, we're going to copy this number from this cell again, and we are going to use the jump command to go up and subtract another 100 from it. We are going to do this loop over and over again until we get this number to a negative number, which indicates that there's no more 100s left to subtract. The way we do that is, if at any point we subtract 100 and it's a negative, we're going to jump out of the loop. We don't want to do it anymore. So this will grab a 700, write down 600, bump up, 6, 5, and so forth, all the way down till it gets to just the number 4 left. It will deduct 100. It will be now negative 96, so which means it's a negative. So it's going to jump forward. We don't want to write down the negative 96. We are going to grab the number from this cell again, which currently would just be a 4, and we need to check how many 10s are in it. So after we've grabbed the number, we're going to subtract a 10. Now, if it's a negative, we don't want to do the loop anymore. But if it's a positive, it's exactly the same as up here. We're going to write down the positive number here, and we are going to bump plus this one to show that we found at least one 10. We're going to just put a jump in up to this copy from command, and we're going to do this loop over and over again. Now, once it is the negative and it jumps out, we should now have all 3 numbers completely separated if it's a 3-digit number. So we can then grab the hundreds, output it. We are going to grab the 10s and we're going to output it. And then we are going to grab the singles and we're going to output it. Once we've done all that, we can jump all the way back to the top of the code. Now, this will work perfectly fine for a 3-digit number, but if it's a single digit or a 2-digit, it's going to output a 0 and a 0 before it outputs a single, or a 0 and then the numbers. We don't want any zeros. So, if when we grab this, it's a 0, the 100, we're going to jump to the end, and then what we're going to do is grab the 10s column. Once we've grabbed from the 10s, we're going to use the if it's a 0 command. We are going to jump up and we are going to output just the single digit. But if it's not a 0, so any other scenario, we are going to output the number and then copy it. So In this case, if it's a 3-digit number, it'll be a copy from, it's a 700, output it, we're going to grab the 0, we're going to output it, and then we're going to grab the 4, and we're going to output it and go back to the start. But if it was just 26, what will happen is it will grab from the hundreds column, it's a 0, it's going to jump up to here, it's going to grab the 2, and then it's going to jump up after it's grabbed the 2, so 2 isn't a 0, so it's going to jump up, it's going to output it, and then grab the 1, the 4, and then output it, and so forth. It's just going to do this loop over and over again. The code is now finished, so we're going to hit play. We're going to see it get set up, so we're going to put the zeros across. I'm going to grab the 704, and we're going to write it down. We're going to deduct 100 from it. It's a positive number, so we can write down 600 and move 100 over. Going to do the same thing again, 500, so we're going to move another 100 over. And we're going to keep doing this all the way until it gets down to below 100. So just speed it up a smidge. So as you can see, we now got a 4, so there's our 700. It's going to check again, there's no more 100s left. So we're going to grab the 4, there's no 10s, so we have our final number of 704. So if I speed it up, you can see we outputted that. We're going to reset the track and grab the next number. Is there any hundreds in a 7? There is not. Is there any 10s in a 7? There is not. So it grabs a 0, no. Grabs a 0, no. Yeah, just a 7. So we can now speed this up, and we're going to finish the last two numbers. So this 564 will take a little while because the 5 and the 6 have got to do a lot of cycles. So there we go, we are finished, so we can output 564. Now it's 26, so there's no hundreds, there's just a 10s and a 6, so just outputting those two cells. And that's it. So when it comes to the size challenge, we're going to use 28 out of 30 commands. And when it comes to the speed challenge, it took 209 out of 65. We're now going to change our code so that we can get the speed challenge, but the code will be too big to get the size challenge. So what we're going to do is just click back. What you're going to do is clear everything that you've got typed in, which should leave all these cells marked. The only difference is now where the 7 is, we're going to keep track of how many 20s there are, and in the 8 cell here, we're going to keep track of how many 200s there are. We now need to copy the 10. We are then going to add 10 and 10, which will give us 20, and we're going to write it down in the 20 cell. We are then going to copy the 100. We're going to add 200s together, so 100 plus 100 will give us 200, which we are then going to write down in the 200 cell. Once we've done that, we need to grab a number from the inbox, so in this case it would be the 704, and we are going to write it down in the ones column, just like before. Now we're going to actually put a quick check in, just straight off the mark to see if it's a single digit number. So after we've written it down, we are going to subtract 10. Now, if it's a negative straight off the mark, we know it's only a single digit number and just throw the number straight into the outbox. This will jump right to the very end of the code, but for now, we're just going to leave it up here, just because it's going to be easier than continuously remembering to push this down. Now, in the scenario where it's not a single digit number, it will leave a positive number. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the 0 and we are going to copy it to the 10s column, and we're also going to copy it to the 100s column. Once we've done all that, we can start our loops to check to see how many hundreds and how many singles there are. So we are going to grab the number from this cell, in this case it would be a 704, and we are going to subtract 200 from it. Now, if it's a negative, we are going to jump forward, because we know that the number is smaller than 200. But if it's a positive number, we are going to write it down into this cell, then we are going to bump plus the 100s column twice. So bump plus, bump plus. Once we've done all that, we can use the jump command, and we're going to jump back up to here, copy the number, and subtract another 200. We're going to do this loop over and over again. Now, in this case where 200 is too big of a number to deduct, we want to see if the 100 would have been okay. So the easiest way to do that is just add 100. So now we've checked to see if 100 would have worked. If it's still a negative number, we're going to jump and not do any more with the hundreds column. However, if it's a positive number, we know that 100 would have been good enough, so we're going to write it down into here that we found another hundreds, and we're going to bump up the hundreds column by one more. We've now completely finished the 100s, and we need to start on the tens. It's the exact same procedure, so we are going to copy from here. So we've got the whatever numbers in this cell in our hands, and we're going to subtract 20 from it. If it's a negative, we know the number is less than 20, and we'll continue on our way. But if it was a positive number, we need to write it down into this cell, and then we are going to bump plus the tens column twice to show that we've worked out that there was at least two tens, so a 20 in the formula. And then we're going to use the jump command to complete this whole little mini loop again. So we're going to grab it, subtract another 20, 20, 20, and then we're going to just do this loop over and over again. Now, if 20 wasn't enough, but 10 might have been, we'll check by going add 10. If it's still a negative, we know we're right. So in this case, it would just be a 4 in this cell. So it's going to deduct 20. It's going to give us, what's that, negative 16. That's obviously a fail. It's going to add 10, negative 4. It's still a fail. So it's not going to do any subtraction to the tens column. But if it was a, to say a 14, a 20 would fail because it would be a negative 6. But when it adds 10 again, we're going to get to positive 4. So it's going to be a positive number. So we need to write it down. So we're going to copy it down to here. And then we are going to bump plus the tens column to say there was at least one 10. Now we've reached the end here. We're actually at the end of the code. All we have to do is output the 3-digit number. So we're going to grab the 100 and we're going to output it. We are going to grab the tens column and we're going to output it. And we are going to grab the singles and we're going to output it. Once we've done all that, we just need to put if the hundreds column is a 0, we're going to skip the outboxing and grab the tens and output it. We're going to use the jump command and go all the way to the top, like so. So the check at the bottom is only checking, it's only going to output if it's a 3-digit number or a 2-digit number. Now, remember we've got this jump up here. If it's a single-digit number, we're going to grab it, go all the way down here and tell it we're going to grab the single-digit number and output it. That's the entire code. So if I click play, you should see it gets itself set up. I'm going to stop it. I've made a tiny mistake. This here, this jump, we actually need to move it to the inbox. Because after every round, we do not need to dupe the 20 and the 200 up because they never change. I'm going to hit play again. So we're going to grab the two 10s, make a 20. Two 100s, make a 200. Write it down. 535, I'm going to write it down. We're going to deduct the 5. So first of all, we checked that it wasn't a single digit number. It wasn't, so we need to see how many hundreds there are. There's at least 2 hundreds in there. So change it to 2. Check it again. There's at least another 2 hundreds in there. So we're going to push it up another 2. I'm going to check again. There isn't 200s, but there is a 100s. So I can bump it down by 100 and add 100 to here. Do the exact same thing to the 10s. So it was at least 2 10s. We're going to check again. This time it's going to fail, but there is at least 1 10s. Deduct it off there, move it across. We now have our 3-digit number, and it's going to output it. So 535, and it's going to do the exact thing to 520. So if I speed it all up, you can see, let's grab the 5. Now it's looking for the 20. It's finished, so 520. Now we get to the single digit number. Straight off the mark, we're going to see it's a single digit number. So we're just going to grab it and output it. We didn't even waste our time resetting the track because it was just the single digit number. Now we know this one is more than a single digit number, so we're going to reset the track and check again. So it's less than 200, it's less than 100, so we're going to move on to the tens column. Ooh, we can take 20 off, so we know it's at least two tens, sorry. Take another 20, that was a fail, add 10 back on. We can take 10, move it across, and now we should have our full final number. So there was no 100, so it's just going to do a 10 and a 1. We have now finished the entire code. So here's the clipboard, and we can see for the size challenge, it took 43 steps out of 30. So we didn't do any good on the size, but we only used 159 out of 165 for the number of steps that we can take. I hope you found this walkthrough helpful, and thank you for watching.